SF Rogers.
And I am DL Golden.
And we are the Author's Chaos. And joining us today is Joe V. We are super excited to have him with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Joe.
Well, I've written most of my life. I originally was born in a little town called Matewan, West Virginia. It's a very historical town. Most people know it for the Hatfield-McCoy feud that took place there. A lot of people know it because of the Matewan Massacre, a shootout between coal miners and Baldwin Phelps detectives. But I used to come to Tennessee on vacation all the time and loved it. And I ended up moving here in 1987 and worked for Dolly Parton's theme park, Dollywood, for over 30 years.
That is so cool. So what did you do for Dolly?
A little bit of everything. I mean, I did just about every job there. My first job, it was really neat. I actually got into town and didn't have a job or anything. And I decided to go to Dixie Stampede, which was also owned by Dollywood at that time. And I was going to go and have a meal and take it easy that evening and then go out and look for a job. Well, I got seated by a guy that worked at Dollywood. We got to talking and he told me about a gentleman that taught people how to throw tomahawks, knives, and spears. I said, oh, it sounds like fun. So I went there. I have a background in martial arts, so I've worked with a lot of weapons, and I ended up getting that job. And I did that for the first year there. Then they moved me in as a train robber, and then I moved from there to entertainment. And that's where I actually got to meet Dolly, and I actually became her bodyguard and driver for a while. There's a lot of videos of me driving her in an old antique car called a DeWitt. That we every time she visits Dollywood, they have a park parade, so everybody gets a chance to see her. And so it was my job to drive her back and forth.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's not something you hear a lot of people out being able to say about themselves.
No, I've been really blessed with being at the right place at the right time.
It's kind of how it always goes, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So we met you as an author. You reached out to us for getting onto the podcast to talk about your writing. So yes. What genre is it that you write?
Well, the first book I wrote is actually a true humor book. It's silly stories that happened to me. Like I said before, I'm accident prone. This is actually that book right there. I'll bet you can't stick a fork in my eye and other stupid things I've said and done. All kinds of really true, really unbelievable accidents and mishaps. That was the first thing. But I always wanted to write fiction. So being from Matewan, West Virginia, with all of that history of the Hatfield-McCoy feud, and my parents came from Hungary, which is steeped in lore and legend about vampires. So those people would come from over in Europe to West Virginia to work in the coal mines because they could make good money, and it was, hard labor, but they made a good living. So a lot of people moved to that area. And I thought, well, what better thing to do? I'm related on my mom's side to the Hatfields of the Hatfield-McCoy. Devil Anse Hatfield, who led that group, was my great-great-uncle. And so I put those together with vampires and wrote a book. This is a 3-book series. This is the first one. It's called Blood Feud, Book 1, Blood is Thicker Than Water. And it basically talks about a young man that loses his mother under mysterious circumstances, and he goes in search of learning more about his mother, who came from West Virginia. And in the process, stumbles onto these vampires, and a lot of them are the Hatfield-McCoy. So he's in this battle with these beings and all kinds of other chaotic things. And of course, there's a love interest who is a fiery blonde that likes to give him a hard time.
So are your vampires like, I guess I think of Queen of the Damned style vampires, where they're like very sleek, or are they more along the lines of like coal miners and things of that nature, like redneck
right.
vampires?
Well, the Hatfields and McCoys, they're more of a redneck vampire. And there is a lot of humor in the book, but that actually is not part of the humor. It is in bits and pieces, but they're more, the way I wrote them was they grew up rough and they had a very violent nature. So I thought, well, we're going to make them even more ruthless and more evil than your typical vampires would be, and also kind of change the genre a bit as far as they can actually come out in the daylight. They're weaker, but they are not only exclusive to the night. So it makes it interesting because he can walk around in the middle of the day and doesn't know who's a vampire and who's not.
That's so cool. Like,
Yeah,
that's a cool take.
It's a cool bend on a genre that has been done over and over and over again. It's so cool that you found a way to thread that into something new and interesting.
Yes, thank you.
Like, I think the thing I like about it is you see all the time, like, there's certain tropes that stick with, like, werewolves and vampires and things of that nature. I think it's so cool to see an author take that and be like, the rules don't exist, and I'm creating a new subgenre within this vampire world, right? Like, people make fun of the sparkly vampires in Twilight, right? But it was something that was never done before. And even poking fun at it, like, they are still mythical creatures. There's still nothing that says that it has to be a certain way. So I like kind of taking that they're sleek and they're perfected, and it's like, no, they're from the hills and they've lived real rough, and they just got more rough as time went on. So it just, I'm really interested in your book. I think I'm definitely it's one I'm gonna pick up for sure.
Well, afterward, if you will send me your address, I will be happy to sign a couple of copies and send them your way.
Oh, would be
so great. Yes.
Be happy to.
So how long have you been writing?
Gosh, I started writing as a kid. But growing up in a small country town, there wasn't a lot of things to do. You learned to play. You played in the mountains. You climbed trees, and I was Tarzan, or I was a cowboy, or a coal miner, and so you had to use your imagination, and that brought me to writing. I love to read, so writing was the next thing. And I jokingly say the first really great piece of writing I ever did, I was in the third grade. And I forged a excuse for not having my homework in school. Unfortunately, I told him that my grandmother had a heart attack, so we were at the hospital all day, which she didn't. And it was fine until my teacher ran into my mother at the grocery store and gave her condolences on my mother or her mother-in-law having a heart attack. She says, she's fine. I don't know what you're talking about. So you got to be careful what you write about sometimes.
So fiction comes to you naturally, then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm really good at stretching stories.
I think it's so funny how many authors we've talked to that have been like, yeah, just kind of my imagination, my daydreaming has sparked into this thing that I'm like, oh, I want to actually write that down, and it just gets away from you. Do you feel like that's how that went?
Yeah, I do. I tell you another thing that really got me interested in writing. It was kind of a joke and a challenge at the same time. My mother used to read Gothic romance novels, and had them everywhere. And I looked at a couple of them, and I said, well, I don't know why you keep buying these and reading them. They're all the same. I could write one of those easy. Oh, really? She said, go ahead. So I did. It wasn't a long book. She said, this is really good. And that kind of sparked my interest in, well, I wonder if I could actually try to sell some books. I've written a lot. I used to write how-to articles on magic because I'm a magician, and on martial arts because of my martial arts background. So I've done lots of articles for like Black Belt Magazine, and I've won some awards writing articles for major publications. But it wasn't fiction. It's mostly how-to articles. But I really love creating a world and creating characters and making them so real that people. I've had threats against me that I cannot kill off Callie, who was the lead woman in my book, and she must marry Stephen and have a baby, and I'm supposed to name it after this person because I've been ordered to. So I'm sure you go through stuff like, I want to be in your book. So it happens a lot.
Yeah, you tell people, and they're like, oh, but you could do this idea, you could do this idea.
Is that character based on me? And you're like, not specifically, but now that you say something.
I'm glad you relate to it so much.
Yeah. That's one thing about my Blood Feud book. A lot of the characters are based on real people. And if you know those people, you have no trouble picking them out. Which is fun as long as they don't get upset with what they see.
Right.
But a lot of them have passed on, so I know I'm safe to write about it. So, but it's so much fun. And I'm a pantser. I don't plot anything out, really. I get a basic idea and I run with it. And I never know how the book is going to end, really. I got a general idea what I want, but I let the book take me where it wants to go. and the story carries me instead of me trying to force it into a slot. So I never know where it's going to end when I start. Right now, the book two takes place in Budapest. They go to Hungary because he's. I don't want to give away too much because it'll give away the whole plot of the book. But he's chasing someone who is the cause of all of the vampirism and all of the trouble that his mother went through, and he's going after him because he has his mother, and he thought she was dead, and she's not.
Well, now I definitely have to read these books. Like now, I have to know.
Oh, there's a lot more twists and turns.
You're in really good company with the Pantsers here. We don't plot much of our stuff at all. But I think we feel that gives it a very natural, relatable feel. You know, because a lot of times you're not planning out every little step that's going to happen in your own story. It tends to just happen to you, and you observe it.
Yes.
How natural can that be that you're just pantsing your way through? Have you noticed that has become an issue for you, though, with writing the second book? Have you had to do more planning to make the timeline fit together correctly, or what?
Well, I did have to do a lot more research because I had to know a lot more about Budapest. Even though my family came from there, I've never been there, which is going to be a trip I'm going to take. But I really researched what was there, all about the revolution in 1956, and just so much, and even more appreciation for my culture from there by learning more about it. But I use real places, real buildings, and there's actual people that are historically correct that are in Hungary. And then book three will come back to West Virginia.
Okay.
So do you plan on it being a trilogy then, a 3-book series by the end of it?
Yeah, it's a 3-book series, but who knows? It could go further, but the plan was originally three books, but people are really enjoying it. So I don't know. I may continue. I may do a spinoff. There's so many characters that I could spin off from it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think as a pantser, when I create, like, I create the space that these characters are going to live in, right? So I deal in fantasy. So nothing, I don't have to like stick with like certain buildings or things, but like basically I create the world, the character's personality, and the weapon that they're going to use. And I'm like, here's your playground. What are you going to do? Like, this is the thing that's happening. Like, figure it out. And like you said, I didn't know the end of my book until I got to the end. And I was like, I came out and I told my husband, I said, I had no idea that was going to happen. And he goes, you're writing it. How do you not know? And I'm like, I just don't know. Okay. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just happening to me.
People don't understand that, but it's very true. My book didn't plan on going to Hungary, but it flowed into that. So now I'm lazy. I don't want to research that much, but when you do it by the seat of your pants and you end up there, you got to learn where you're going.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and it gives it such a real feel because you doing that, you're not trying to shoehorn it in where you want it to go. You're saying, okay, be whatever you are, be the natural thing that you are, and hopefully you come out sounding good and people enjoy you. Otherwise, but I love the idea that we met so many people that are like, yeah, I just wrote.
I just sat down. Like, I just sat down and wrote.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I have had instances where I've written something that I thought was really good, and then 7 pages over, everything changes, and then I have to go back and change some more back in the beginning to make it fit in. But it's all good. It's all good. It's
that's what first and second drafts are for, right? So.
Yes, and I admire you so much for world creating. I can't imagine. I could not, especially at my age. I forget stuff. So this is my life right here. Everything I'm writing and working on is stacked over here in index cards. So,
well, let me tell you, I created my world on pen and paper and got made fun of until I put it on a laptop. So
I
That's
understand.
how I do things. I like scratch notes down at work, and I'll come home and just have leaves of paper. My
An
husband's like,
armload of napkins.
"What is this?" And I'm like, "It's napkins with my world on it. Leave me alone, okay?" Like I got it.
Oh, yeah. People look at me funny. I'll be driving down the road and all of a sudden I'll go, oh, when I pull over and I get a piece of paper, start writing. They're like, what are you doing? I said, it's for my book. It's for my book. And they've got to
Yeah.
the point now, they just like, I pull over, they say, hey, got an idea. That's all it is.
So, are you, with all of that said, are you traditionally or self-published for your work?
I've never tried, honestly. I mean, other than magazine articles and things like that, I have never sent a a book to be published traditionally. Never tried it. I didn't know if I was going to continue, see how much I could do. After doing the first two, it's like, yeah, I love this. So right now, I'm sticking with self-publishing. It took a lot of learning on my part. When I wrote the first book, I had no clue about formatting or input. I had no clue. It took me forever to get the technical side done. I thought, that's over. Then came the promotion and marketing that I didn't know I had to do. So it's, yeah, every time you get something down, there's this other thing that comes along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing we've talked about a lot is self-publishing. There's a group of 4 of us in our family that are authors, and we've all just kind of helped each other out. Like our sister-in-law started first, she released her first book, and she's kind of been the person who was like, hey, so when you format, do it this way, or when you do this way. Like she kind of forged the path for the rest of us to be able to like join her.
That's
Right.
And she's been very kind of like turning around and like asking or like answering our questions when we have questions and stuff. So that's been really nice to have like other authors. I couldn't imagine
Just going it alone.
just going it alone, like what she did, where she just like alone by herself figured all the things out. Like, I'm so glad that I have someone who's like, oh, honey, your book has to be this size or it's not.
yeah,
No,
yeah. Oh, I
you have
understand.
to have paragraph breaks, honey. Like you can't have paragraphs that are 7 pages long. You have to break those up.
Oh yeah. I've recently there's some local authors in this area, and I try to support every author I can find. So there was one that was having a book signing close by, so I went to that about a month ago, and we've actually formed a little group. Then we're helping each other as well. We promote each other and help each other with the technical aspects. It really makes a big difference.
Yeah. Having a support group is just something so important. I mean, we've formed a group with just members on TikTok amongst our small little group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so nice to hear that when you're really struggling with your writing, that everybody deals with that. Everybody has those issues, and that it's not just you, and you don't suck at writing just because you can't write during one day or something.
Yeah, right.
You know.
Well, and it's nice to have those people to fall back on and be like, am I crazy? But I just wrote this scene, and they're like, yep, sorry, you're crazy. Like, you're crazy.
Yeah, some people read some of my fights and the deaths, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't know you were that violent." So it's like, I keep it up here. I don't let it out.
Yep.
It only gets out to the computer, nowhere else.
Well, it has to be what the story requires, you know? And so even if that's not your personality, it's like, oh, it has to be, this character needs to, you know, so we it has to happen. And when people are like, I didn't think you had that in you. Well, it was necessary.
Yes. Yeah. My mom's 85 years old, and she reads everything that I do. So I also have that critic, and I also have to make sure I don't upset her too. But she's okay. So far, she's okay with, she said, oh, that one scared me. I was like, oh, well, I did my job.
That's a line to walk. I think writing as a teacher is difficult. Writing with your 85-year-old mother and as an audience might be even worse.
Yeah,
that might be hard.
And she was the choir director, so yeah, I got to be real careful how I fit things in. Make sure it works.
Fine.
That's
or either just say I'll have to write a completely separate version of it for her.
A narrowed down one,
right?
That's funny.
So, vampires. Did you? You might have told us how you decided to write about vampires. Was there a certain thing that happened in your life where you were like vampires were a part of like oral traditions or something from your parents being from Hungary, or like was it
Yeah.
something that you've just seen a lot of and you liked vampires?
Yeah. Well, I've always loved the old classic horror movies. The Invisible Man and Dracula and the Wolf Man. Oh, I grew up. I'm 66 years old, so I grew up with all of those movies, and so I had a love for them anyway. But then with vampires, it was a little bit closer connection because of my family that came from Hungary, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting. And my grandmother was very superstitious, so there's a lot of funny uh, beliefs that they have. I used to get paid every New Year's Day to be the first person at my grandmother's house because if a man visits you first, you were going to get money and have luck all year. So she would pay me to get up early to come over. I said, okay, I like that one.
Write that down.
Yeah,
But
that's what you can get behind, right?
yeah, well, I mean, and here's a story. It's really not book related, but the things with my grandmother. She owned a restaurant that she had, and uh, on Halloween night, she would pay me the next day to wash the soap, because people would soap windows. And so she would pay me to clean the windows. Well, I was the one soaping them because I knew if I had soap on the windows, I would get paid. So, yeah, I'm confessing, but yeah, uh, yeah, but maybe it won't get out too far. I don't know.
This goes out to Joe's 85-year-old mother that's listening to this
so
when it comes
sorry.
out. So, our bad.
No problem. I live far enough away. It'll be a while before she can get to me, so I'll be
There
okay.
you go. There you go.
Go ahead. You can ask that one.
Okay, so we ask, and we love asking this question because we get so many really great answers. What is a piece of advice you stand by, or you would give like an author who's just starting out?
The best advice is no matter how bad you feel that day or how you have no inspiration, start putting something on paper, even if it's a totally different story, because it triggers your mind and it makes you think. And some of your best writing can come from having writer's block if you pursue it. You got to be motivated enough to say, okay, I'm going to step away from the computer for an hour. I'm going to have a cup of coffee or go for a walk. And I come back. And if I'm not ready, I will just start typing stuff. I'll make up Mary Had a Little Lamb, anything. And it sparks ideas. And so that's what gets the creation going again.
I think that's good. I think a lot of writer's block, a lot of the issue with it is that people will just sit and they'll mull on it and they won't just push through and put something down. What you put down can be absolute garbage. I mean, you can always go back and delete whatever you didn't want.
Exactly.
But just getting those words down on paper, I think it's always going to eventually come out of that slump and work into something that actually works.
Well, and something that I heard 2 weeks ago, so I had someone who is very near and dear to me tell me to leave the story that I've spent a year with and work on something different to get my mind out of the nitpicky thing that I was doing to my characters. And she was like, if you can get your mind on something different, when you come back to this, you're going to see your characters in a different light because you've spent less time with them. And it just kind of made sense to me. So I went and I worked on something that doesn't even, like, the book doesn't have a name. It doesn't have chapters. I don't even know where it's going. I just started it, just randomly had an idea and started it. And it actually ended up being like kind of a palate cleanser where now I can look at my characters and be like, okay, I know what's going to happen at the beginning of the next book. I don't need to erase an entire chapter and start over. Like,
right.
It's going to be okay, So I really like that advice to just step away from it. And no matter what you write, just write something.
Yes. Yeah. Just the act of writing alone will keep you going. If you let the writer's block keep you away from working on something before you know it, it's been several days and you're getting further and further away from everything. You just got to get out there and do it. Even if you feel bad, write for 10 minutes and then step away, come back.
Yeah, it's almost like working out, I mean, yes. You might not want to do it. It might sound like it's going to suck the second you get to that gym and do it, but you're going to feel better even if you do just a little bit of it.
For sure.
Yes,
100%.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's phenomenal advice. I mean, we're coming right to the end here. Where can everyone find you, Joe? Social media, where are you located?
Sure. Well, if you're interested in the books, they're on Amazon, of course. And they're also in any like Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. They're on all kinds of different online retailers. So they're available there. If you want a signed copy, you can go there. I have a website and email and things like that if you want to. Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, which is X now, and LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok, all that.
And we will get all of Joe's links here and shove them in the description of the video when it comes out. So you'll see them there.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess we'll do our outro here. We're round it off.
Well, I'll start. I'm SF Rogers. I actually have a cover in the works for my book, and I'm so stoked about it, which means that I'm one step closer to having a completed book. So be prepared. We will be talking about Execration of Autumn more in depth soon. Yeah, and you can find me on Threads, Twitter, X, Facebook, TikTok, at the author's chaos at gmail.com for emails.
I am DL Golden. I just recently put out Origins Redux, which is the second edition of my first book, Origins. It is available in hardback on Amazon, paperback on Amazon, on Kindle Unlimited. If you're interested in that, it looks a whole lot prettier than it used to. Was lovingly calling it the beautiful edition. It is now Redux. But it is available now. I will be at the Joplin Writers Fair this Saturday, the 7th. So if people are in the area and want to come see me and get a signed copy of my book, or just come say, hey, that's where I'll be. Joe, it has been absolutely phenomenal talking to you, like always.
That was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you guys for what you do. Appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you for that. We enjoy getting to talk to everybody and make new friends.
Yeah.
So, and you are definitely top tier, like most interesting person that I personally ever talked to.
Yeah.
If
Because
nothing
you
else,
just-
I can make you laugh. I guarantee you that.
You just keep bringing up, like, you were in martial arts, you're a magician, you're a writer, you worked for Dolly Parton. Like, there's just...
The worst one, I used to be an Elvis impersonator, not by choice.
It just becomes a question of how big is the hat that you have to fit all of
Well,
those
I
feathers.
had to get rid of some hair to get the hat on. That's how bad it was. That's
Oh.
Well, as always, we have been the Author's Chaos. Joe, you're amazing. We will definitely have you back on,
yeah.
especially when your second book comes out.
We'd
Get a
love
hold of us, and we're going to get you back on here.
Yes. Like,
Absolutely.
subscribe, share this podcast, and let us know that you've listened. Thanks for joining us today.
We'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye.